All right, greetings and salutations. As always, we're going to start with a little bit of a review of what we've covered previously. We talked about the four P's. We talked about product in the previous unit as far as what you're selling, price, place, and promotion. In this unit, we're talking about place. So, where people are going to buy your product is kind of the main thing that you're going to take away and how it gets there. So, it refers to the channel or the route, how your goods get there. We'll talk about those here in a second. We'd look at where people are buying your product and even maybe so how people are buying your product. All right. So we got to know if they're like we talked about in our example, you're not going to sell tires at Best Buy. I mean, people just aren't going to look for tires at Best Buy. They're not going to look for a computer at tire discounters either. So you got to make sure you're putting your product where people are going to look for it because the right place means greater chances of sales. And that's what we're looking for. We want to sell our product and we have to be able to put it out in front of the correct customers to be able to sell our product. So where are they looking for? Got to know that. Got to know where people are looking to buy your product. What kind of store they're looking for. Maybe only online, or you have a special store that they're going to go buy your product at. So starting anew, we talk about the impact of the product. A delicate or perishable product will need special arrangements, while sturdy or durable products will not require such delicate handling. So if we're talking about shipping a refrigerator, right? A refrigerator is pretty durable. You can kind of just put that on a pallet, throw it on a truck, and you'll be okay. You don't have to worry about the temperature of it because it doesn't, it's not going to impact it. Then we talk about things that perish. Typically, we're going to talk about a food item, something that we're going to eat, something that has to be consumed in a certain period of time. Milk or a vegetable. Vegetables are a good example of a perishable product. If you don't eat it in enough time, it'll go sour or it'll go bad. All right, you have to eat it when it's right. So you got to be able to get it out to the customer in the correct amount of time. All right, and when we talk about shipping milk, milk's a good example. You can't just put that in a traditional truck and send it on down the road. It has to be in something that's going to keep it cold. It has to be at the right temperature. All right. So, and with vegetables, some of those vegetables have to be kept cold. You can't just put it on a traditional truck. All right. It requires special handling. And at the same time, maybe you're shipping glass items. Well, you can't just put them in a box and throw them on a truck all, willy nilly and not pay attention. It's delicate. You got to make sure that people know what's in there so they're not just slamming the box on something or throwing your stuff around. All right. The type of product being manufactured is often the deciding factor in distribution decisions. So, depending on what we're making, that's going to have a big impact on where we're going to put it. And I think that's pretty evident that we've talked about before. We're not going to put tires in Best Buy because people aren't going to be looking for it. Right? That's not the right distribution channel. One of the things that we talk about also in distribution channels is how something physically gets from point A to point B. In our previous example, I talked about that items that need to be kept cold, well, they require a special truck to transport them on. You can't just put them on a traditional box truck and send it on down the road. Your items won't be good when they get there. Right? If it has to be kept cold, it has to be on a special truck. So when we talk about our place, one of the main things that we talk about is our distribution channel. So, channels of distribution are the paths or routes that goods and services take from the producer to the ultimate consumer or the industrial user. Now, when we talk about the path or the route, not so much the road that it's going on, but how does it physically get there? All right, how does it get from the producer, the one making it, to the consumer? Does it have to go through another store? Is there people in between? And we'll talk about those as being our intermediaries. Right, and those are the people that are going to help get it from the producer to the consumer. So when we talk about our distribution channel, we have two main things that we're going to look at. All right, we have direct distribution and indirect distribution. Direct distribution is two people, the producer and the consumer. Okay, there's nobody in between. That direct distribution to flourish because people don't need those in between, those storefronts or anything else to try and get their items out there. And the other one that we talk about is indirect distribution. Now, in this diagram, it's drawn up the producer sends their stuff out to the wholesaler, and then the wholesaler sends it to the retailer, and then the retailer sells it to the consumer. Now, anytime that it's not from the producer to the consumer, it's indirect. Okay, so if it goes producer, wholesaler to consumer, that's still indirect because there's someone between the producer and the consumer. So anytime you have someone between the producer and the consumer, that's indirect because it's not going directly from the producer to the consumer. I think I've said that enough times in as many different ways as I can think of. And we see this a lot. So the producer sends something out to the wholesaler. Wholesaler's typically going to have stuff in bulk, and they might be holding it for you, or they're going to buy 4 pallets of your items, and then maybe they might be the one that sells it to the retailer, and then the retailer sells it to the consumer. Because as a consumer, I can't go to the ramen noodle place and buy 1 packet of ramen noodles. It doesn't work like that. They're selling stuff either by the truckload or by the pallet. And probably if you're going to buy ramen noodles, you might get it by the truckload. So the wholesaler is buying ramen noodles by the truckload, okay? And then the wholesaler sells a pallet to the retailer, and then the retailer breaks that pallet and sells one individual package to the consumer. So one of the things that we have to make sure that we understand when we talk about place is how can you access the right distribution channels, all right? And again, we want to make sure that we're using the right ones for our company. If we're selling something that needs to be kept cold, and we use this example because it works pretty well. If we have something that's going to be cold, and I'm going to go back to our other slide. If I'm a producer of a vegetable that has to be kept cold or has to stay fresh, I might not want as many channels in my distribution. Maybe I want to go directly producer to consumer so that it's going to be fresh. And that's kind of where we see our farmers markets. That's directly producer to consumer. That's a good example of a direct distribution. But maybe we're trying to sell something someplace else. So if we need a wholesaler for our vegetables, we're going to need someone that has the ability to keep it cold. All right. I don't want to send my vegetables over there and they're going to go bad because you don't have any way to prepare my product or hold my product or ensure that my product is going to be okay, because I want to make sure the consumer's getting it at the right time. And same thing, maybe we're just going to go produce at a retailer, still indirect distribution, but I want to make sure I'm using the correct retailer, right? I don't want to find someone that's going to ruin my product, right? So again, when we talk about accessing those distribution channels, you got to have to make sure that you shop around. You want to make sure that they're capable of handling your product, and if you are going to talk about a retailer, it has to be the right kind of retailer. All right, they might be able to handle your product and be great with it, but if people aren't going to be going there to look for your product, well, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to use them then.